Right, Peder Opstad, welcome to this Theatre Café Webinar Series about writing for young audiences, writing and performing and producing for young audiences. You are an actor, you also an artistic director of your own company, Grimsborken, who have toured schools and performed for young audiences for about 10 years now. 12
and a half.
And a half. And yeah, so you have a lot of experience with this various age groups actually, and I wanted to ask you first of all about programming, because as an artistic director you have made choices for 12 and a half years about what to put on. What are you looking for?
Well, to put it simple, I'm always looking for a good story, and something which I would be willing to buy a ticket for, and I think it's important that I find things which appeals to the child within me. It's so easy to think, what do children want? What do they like? And if you do that, it's very easy to fail and to just miss the target. So I always try to find things which I find funny or provocative or engaging, because I think it's easier to succeed if I do that. And I have to succeed because I don't get any funding. So I need to be to take care of the arts as well as the business aspect of this. So I also try to find plays which fit my repertoire, and a repertoire which targets different age groups and different subjects. So that keeps me busy, and I have things to do for a long time.
When you're saying you're looking for a good story, that is the first thing. What for you is a good story? Is it possible to...
Well, to put it upside down, what's not a good story?
Right.
The first time I made a show for children, I did everything wrong, you could say. And I ended up making a show about nothing. Well, that's not true. I made a show about friendship. And if you have a show about friendship, there's no conflict, there's nothing at stake, there's no objective, there's no activity leading towards the objective, it's just friendship, which I think is just a play about nothing. So I think both children and grown-ups need stories which is important, something at stake, a conflict, a hero, a villain. It doesn't need to be that concrete, it can be more abstract as well, but you need to have something important to tell, something at stake.
Are you talking about heroes and villains, but you're saying it can be more abstract? Do you have any examples of how that can work? If it's not an actual kind of... I mean, of course you have a protagonist in a story, presumably, some kind of lead character. But if you don't have a villain, what would be the...
Well, it can be an inner obstacle. I mean, you don't need, Sauron from Lord of the Rings, to have a proper villain. It can be something which you have to overcome, something within yourself, or something which the protagonist finds as an obstacle, something difficult. But it needs to make the main character, move somewhere from A to B at least, physically or mentally, or both.
When you're programming for different age groups, do you have any kind of guidelines for what you're looking for different age groups? Why is something a play for, the tweens, as they're called now, kind of 10, 12, why is something for 6-year-olds? How do you think about who you're performing for and what content or what material you choose?
Well, actually, I rarely start in that end, you know. I always find a play or a story which appeals to me, and I make the show, and then I test the show on different age groups, and you know, not only different age groups, but also sometimes, you know, people from the west side or the east side of the city, or rural areas or urban areas. It's what you do with any other given product, you know. So, and after doing that, I mean, when we start, I have a certain idea, you know, who will like this show, but after testing the play, you know more for certain if it's like 12 to 15, or maybe sometimes we have a children's show which, you know, may as well appeal to grown-ups. It's like we have a show now called Vestleblakken, about a horse saving his friend and dying. And it works from age 6 until 100. And we can know that for sure before we tested the show.
So, since this is aimed mostly at writers, although I hope other, you know, professionals in the theatre also will find these interviews interesting, but we're mainly working towards writers. How does the writer then, does the writer not need to concern, you know, him or herself with age group at all when they write, and just leave that to the theatre makers to figure out once the show is ready? Or do you think that the playwright needs to have some kind of idea of the audience?
Definitely. I think a writer should, at an early stage, meet the audience and maybe try things out, you know, bring actors, show a piece of the show, test, get feedback, rewrite, make mistakes, rewrite, do more new mistakes. It's so hard to just sit there by your desk and write a play and then, you know, it's finished, do the show. I think it's important to meet the audience at an early stage.
Do you work very closely with writers in that way when you're performing or directing, or do you bring the writer in, if you can, to your rehearsal process?
Well, in most cases, the plays are made by the ensemble, but we have always, in most cases, the director who is like leading the process and you know, making choices. So we haven't actually had a writer writing a play and here's the work.
But you have picked up pieces that have been produced before. You've translated work from abroad and performed in Norway. Yeah. You ever brought the writer over from abroad?
Well, a few times we've worked with a company called Zeal Theatre from Australia, and they write their own shows in a journalistic way, in many cases based on true stories. And 3 times we've done a Norwegian adaptation. But every time we've worked with people from that company, so they have actually written the show and performed the show in Australia, and they are working with us doing the show in Norway. But they realized that there are certain choices we need to make, because there are, you know, so many differences from the Australian society to the Norwegian. So we have a great freedom to you know, tweak things and make it more realistic to the Norwegian society.